No one could have imagined that the young woman smiling in the back of this photograph was only hours away from a night that would change her destiny forever. What happened next stripped away everything she loved and buried a secret that would stay hidden for decades. In 1953, the Harrington family was considered one of the most respected families in Chicago. In a photograph taken that summer, Mr. and Mrs. Harrington stood proudly with their 3 children, all of them beaming at the camera. But behind them, almost going unnoticed, was a young woman of just 22, also smiling. Her name was Carmen Rivera, and that smile, without her knowing it, was the last truly happy memory she would have for a very long time. Carmen had come to the city a few years earlier, leaving behind a small town in rural Illinois. From a young age, she had learned the value of hard work and sacrifice. She was warm, dependable, and always had a smile for everyone around her. In the Harrington household, she was never treated as just an employee. The 3 children adored her. Little Isabel reached for her hand before bedtime. Michael, the oldest, came to her for help with his homework. And little Danny, he simply refused to eat unless Carmen was nearby to tell him a story. One evening, Danny refused to come to the dinner table. Mrs. Harrington tried to convince him for several minutes, but the boy just sat with his arms crossed. "I don't want to eat," he kept saying. Carmen walked over with a gentle smile and sat down beside him. What if Captain Danny needs his strength for his next big adventure? The boy smiled immediately. Minutes later, he was eating quietly while Carmen spun an imaginary tale just for him. Mrs. Harrington watched from the doorway and smiled softly. "I don't know what we'd do without you, Carmen." For Carmen, that house had truly become a second home. And though the work was hard, she felt grateful for the life she was building. There was another reason her heart felt full. Just a few neighborhoods away lived a young man named Eddie. Hardworking, steady, the kind of man you could build a life with. They had been together for years, meeting every Sunday at the park to talk about the future. A small house, a family, growing old together. Carmen was convinced that after so many years of struggle, happiness had finally arrived. She had no idea that same night would take it all away. Because that photograph taken in 1953 didn't just capture a family smiling. It captured the last day Carmen Rivera felt truly at peace. That night, Mrs. Harrington left the house with the children to visit her sister across town. The house fell quiet. Carmen took the opportunity to finish a few chores before resting. That was when she heard Mr. Harrington's voice from down the hall. "Carmen, I need to speak with you for a moment." Unsuspecting, she walked toward his study. But the moment she stepped inside, she knew something was wrong. "Sir, I think it's better if I go," she said nervously. That night, Mr. Harrington used his position of power in a way that was a complete and devastating betrayal of the trust Carmen had placed in that family for years. She managed to pull away, but she walked out of that room with her heart shattered and a wound that would take a very long time to heal. With tears in her eyes, she gathered the courage to confront him. "Mrs. Harrington needs to know the truth." The man's expression changed completely. "If you say one word, I will destroy your life." Carmen said nothing. She was terrified, but deep in her heart, she knew she couldn't stay silent forever. What she didn't know was that Mr. Harrington was already preparing something far worse, something that would take not only her job, but her name. The following morning, before anyone was awake, he had one of his wife's most valuable pieces of jewelry, a pearl necklace passed down from her mother. Hours later, Mrs. Harrington was searching frantically. Drawers pulled open, closets emptied. The necklace was gone. Then, with a calm that made Carmen's blood run cold, Mr. Harrington spoke. "Only one person had access to this room. I didn't do anything. I swear to you." But the man continued to fan the suspicion. And Mrs. Harrington, caught between years of trusting Carmen and years of marriage to her husband, believed the wrong person. "I never thought you'd do something like this to us." Carmen wanted to tell the whole truth. But when she looked at Mr. Harrington, she remembered the threat, and fear stole the words right out of her. That same day, she was let go. She walked out with a small bag and eyes full of tears. All 3 children were crying, too young to understand what was happening. Little Danny ran after her down the front steps. "Carmen, don't go." Mrs. Harrington pulled him back inside. That was the last time Carmen ever saw those children. And what felt like the end of her nightmare was only the beginning. Using his connections around the city, Mr. Harrington made sure everyone heard the same story. Every door Carmen knocked on closed with the same words. "We're sorry. We've already heard about you." She had lost her job. She had lost her name. And she had no idea the worst was still to come. She tried to reach Eddie several times, but he always had an excuse. "I'm busy, Carmen. We'll talk another day." She thought work was keeping him occupied. She didn't realize he was pulling away on purpose. The weeks that followed were the hardest of her life. Every morning she left with hope. Every evening she came home empty-handed. Her savings ran out. More than one night she fell asleep on an empty stomach. Then one day, after weeks of dizziness and a weakness she could no longer ignore, she went to a clinic and received news that left her speechless. She was going to be a mother. Despite the fear, she held on to the belief that this baby was a fruit of the real love she and Eddie had shared for years. In the middle of so much loss, it was the one beautiful thing she had left. She decided to find him one last time. But when she arrived, she discovered he had already moved on, already close to another woman. And when she told him through tears that she was carrying his child, his response hit her like a knife. "That baby isn't mine. I don't know who you've been with." He had already made his decision. Her news only gave him the excuse he needed to start over. He walked away without looking back. And Carmen, once again, was completely alone. That night she walked through the rain for hours, not knowing where to go. For the first time in her life, she felt as though she had lost everything. But through her tears, she placed her hand on her stomach and understood that even if the whole world had turned its back on her, she now had a reason to keep fighting. The months that followed were a constant battle. She learned to survive on almost nothing. Temporary work for bread, humble rented rooms, sometimes the kindness of strangers. But she never stopped protecting the life growing inside her. Then one rainy afternoon, walking through a neighborhood, she felt her strength give out completely. The hunger and exhaustion had finally caught up with her. Before she hit the ground, a woman caught her. "Easy, honey, you're safe now." Her name was Dr. Margaret Ross, a widowed physician who ran a small community clinic in the neighborhood. She brought Carmen inside, examined her, and understood immediately that this young woman needed more than medical care. She needed someone who believed in her. "Nobody makes it through this world completely alone," Dr. Ross told her gently when Carmen tried to leave so as not to be a burden. Slowly, Carmen regained her strength. Dr. Ross offered her a small position at the clinic, not much money, but a second chance. Months later, she gave birth to a son. Dr. Ross was with her through the entire labor, and she was the first one to hold a baby. He was a fighter, just like his mother. Carmen looked at him through tears. In the middle of so much pain, this little boy had become her reason to stay standing. The years passed. Days spent working alongside Dr. Ross. Nights spent raising her son with what little she had, never letting him go without love or dignity. Sometimes she skipped meals so she could buy him a book or a new pair of shoes. Dr. Ross watched all of this with quiet pride. And over time, the relationship between the two women stopped being employer and employee. It became mother and daughter. "I am so proud of the woman you've become," Margaret would tell her. When Dr. Ross's health began to fail, she called Carmen to her bedside. With tears in her eyes, she handed her a folder of documents. "All of this is yours now. Honey, promise me you'll keep helping people." Not long after, Dr. Margaret Ross passed away peacefully, leaving the clinic in Carmen's hands. That day, Carmen thought about the frightened young woman who had once been thrown out her house for something she didn't do. And she understood that despite all the pain, life had finally given her back what she deserved. But destiny still had one final surprise. Over the years, many wounds had healed, but there was one that never fully disappeared. Carmen thought of Eddie the day her son was born. She thought of him on the hard nights. She thought of him even on the good days. Meanwhile, the woman Eddie had left her for eventually betrayed him. Piece by piece, he lost everything he had built. And only then, too late, did he truly understand the damage he had caused. Years later, he came to find her. When he walked into the clinic and saw her standing there, shame washed over him. Carmen felt time stop. For just a moment, she saw the young man she had once fallen in love with. With a broken voice, he asked for her forgiveness. He begged for a second chance. For Carmen, it was one of the hardest moments of her life, because she didn't hate him. And maybe that was what hurt the most. I loved you with everything I had, Eddie. And if I told you I forgot you, I'd be lying. I thought of you when our son was born. I thought of you on every hard night and on every good day. Her voice began to break. But love has its own rules. And the day you chose to walk away, something inside me broke that never healed the same way. She smiled, quietly, sadly. There are mistakes that can be forgiven, but there are wounds that change forever the way a person learns to love again. I'm not crying because I stopped loving you. I'm crying because part of me is still saying goodbye to the man I once dreamed of growing old with. She looked at him with clear, steady eyes. But I learned to live without you, and I learned to respect myself, so I can't go back. Eddie looked down. He understood in that moment that he had lost forever the only woman who had ever truly loved him. He left in silence, and when he disappeared at the end of the street, Carmen allowed herself to cry, not for the end of her love, but for the dream she once built alongside him. Even with a broken heart, she chose her dignity. The years kept passing. The small community clinic had become one of the most respected in the city, and the boy Carmen had fought her whole life to protect was now a brilliant young man, inspired by his mother's sacrifice, studying to become a doctor. One rainy afternoon, a desperate woman rushed into the clinic with a gravely ill young man. Carmen looked up and felt time stop. It was Mrs. Harrington. The years had left their mark on her face, but Carmen would have recognized her anywhere. And the sick young man beside her was one of her sons. Mrs. Harrington recognized her too. For a moment, shame crossed her face like a shadow. Carmen said nothing. She simply walked to the young man's side and began to treat him. "Don't worry. Your son is in good hands." As she watched Carmen save her child's life, Mrs. Harrington felt a pain she had no words for. The very woman she had thrown out of her home decades ago was now the one saving what mattered most to her. Days later, while sorting through her late husband's belongings, Mrs. Harrington found a letter hidden among old documents. It was from him, written before he died. With trembling hands, she began to read. In that letter, Mr. Harrington confessed everything. The lies, the hidden necklace, the false accusation, the irreparable damage he had caused. The letter ended with these words: "If you're reading this, it means I'm already gone. And if it's still possible, please ask Carmen for forgiveness on my behalf, because she was the only innocent one in all of this." Mrs. Harrington broke down completely. She had spent her life beside a man she believed she knew. The truth had been something else entirely. The next morning, she went to find Carmen. When she saw her, she fell to her knees. "Forgive me. I failed you. I never listened to you, and I judged you for something you never did." Carmen felt the memories rush back like a storm. But she remembered the words Dr. Ross had once spoken to her, and she understood that holding on to bitterness only stretches out the pain. She reached down and helped Mrs. Harrington to her feet. "The day I needed you most, you didn't hear my truth," she said, her voice calm and steady, a calm that came from deep within. "But today, your son needed me, and I would never punish an innocent person for someone else's mistakes. Someone once taught me that pain doesn't heal with more pain." Mrs. Harrington wept, and for the first time in decades, Carmen felt something loosen in her chest, a part of her heart that had finally, quietly, found peace. A few months later, her son received his medical degree. As she watched him in his white coat, Carmen couldn't hold back her tears. She thought about the frightened young woman she had once been. She thought about the hunger, the lonely nights. She thought about Dr. Margaret Russ. And she understood. All of it had led here. All of it had meant something. Because life had taken so much from her. But it had never managed to take her dignity. She pulled her son into her arms, looked up at the sky, and whispered, "We did it, Dr. Russ." And for the first time in her entire life, she smiled without pain. Life can take people from us. Dreams. Moments that will never come back. But as long as we don't lose our dignity, our kindness, and the will to keep going, there will always be a new chance to begin again. Because the real victory isn't in getting revenge on those who hurt us. It's in proving that despite everything, we turned our pain into something beautiful. If this story touched your heart, leave me a comment and tell me which part moved you the most. Like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. And if you love stories full of emotion, subscribe and join me for the next one. Thank you for being here. See you in the next story.